Welcome back to MVM. Today we have a Kickstarter preview. This one is for Treasure Mountain, which is a 2 to 4 player worker placement game from August Games. So each of the players is representing a dwarven clan who are basically building up their own personal mines in front of them.
Yeah, it's cool that it's not just a worker placement game, it's also a tile laying game.
Yeah.
And that you're kind of actually building a tableau in front of you that represents your personal mine.
Yeah, there's a really neat mechanism too that you're bumping other players. So there's this bump mechanism in which you're using your worker either to place on an empty spot, or if it's a higher or a longer bearded dwarf, you're bumping other players off, being able to take those spots and then allowing them to take their action again.
Yeah, I think anyone that's familiar with worker placement games will understand the basic way this game is played, as far as having all of these spots on the board that allow you to manipulate your mine in different ways. But like you said, they are leveled. You have leveled by the length of their beard, actually,
Right.
from 1 to 3 and 4 and 5 in a smaller game.
Right.
Yeah, and you have to play them in order of lowest to greatest.
Yeah.
But the higher ones can bump the others, send them back to bed, which means you actually get to place your lower meeple again right away,
Yeah.
which is kind of cool.
It's a neat mechanism for sure. So it is a worker placement game. Let's talk about all the different components. There's a lot of different things here. So you have the game board in the center of the table. This game board is going to house all the different worker placement spots. There's 12 different spots that you can go to in this game, all of them allowing you to do a little bit different things through the course of the game. What's cool about this is that some of these spots allow you to actually participate in the action even though you didn't physically go to that worker placement spot. Right. These are called all-in spots. And the trick here is that you want to take these, because they're powerful actions.
They are.
But you also want to take them so that they don't benefit other players. There's some timing mechanisms in here as well.
Right. You want to try to position it so that you're taking that spot when you can benefit from that. But maybe the player next to you doesn't have the resources to take that spot. And if you take it with a high enough level meeple,
you block them out.
You block them out, so it's an interesting decision.
The number of dwarves you start with is dependent upon the number of players. So we have a 4-player game set up, meaning that each of them is going to have a number 1, 2, and 3. You're going to have more dwarves with fewer players. You have a number of gems. There's 4 different colored gems in the game. These are going to correlate very specifically to the mines that you start with. Every player is going to start with a different color mine. The gems correlate to those particular mines. Also, you have coins. So you're greedy, you're trying to collect as much gold as possible. You have beer barrels. These beer barrels are going to allow you to use specific actions. And then you have dirt. You're going to be using your mines to collect those gems. You don't actually have those gems in front of you until they're pulled out of the mine. And you can mine deeper into the same mines that you have.
Excavate deeper into an empty mine shaft.
Yeah, but the thing is, each time you do so, you're adding dirt to it. And dirt means that the further you dig, the less resources you're going to pull out.
Right. Yeah, every tile gets seeded with a certain amount of gems that can be removed and put in your personal stash. But you're right, eventually you'll excavate it so many times, you can't excavate there anymore.
Exactly.
And that's why you really have to expand your mine by tunneling a little deeper and taking those mine tiles.
Each player is also going to start with a mine in front of him. Typical mines in the game are just 1 space. This one has 2 spaces. And you're going to start with gems of those colors. So I'm going to start with 4 blue and then 3 blue on the bottom. You're just simply going to place them on there. So the game is actually very simple to play. What you're going to be doing is you're going to pull your lowest numbered dwarf or shortest beard off of the tavern, and you're going to take one of the possible actions on the board. Now, there's really only one stipulation to that. You cannot go to a place where someone has a higher numbered beard or even the same number. So if someone occupies a 1 already, that space is blocked for me to go to unless I use a higher number. But the trick is you have to use your lower numbered first. So I'll have to use my 1 and then the red player and then the green player and then the yellow player. And then it's just going to cycle through that in a snake fashion using each of those workers.
Yeah, and you can actually start chain reactions or combos when you start bumping workers. Those workers get sent back to the bed. Then they might bump another worker that's lower than them even, and it kind of creates this chain effect.
All of these different spaces on the board do different actions, but they're typically broken into specific regions. On the bottom left-hand side, this is the dragon. The dragon's going to activate at specific points within the game. He has his own little track across the bottom here, and he's going to move forward until he actually physically attacks the players. This is represented by these tiles that you see here. When you move this, you're going to notice that there's 2 level 1 tiles and then 5 level 2 tiles. Players are going to have to roll the die and then use axes that they've collected from very specific spots in order to try to combat that dragon. Now, there's no set time when he could attack. It's really dependent upon different conditions within the game board.
It's very player controlled.
Yep.
There are certain spots that you go to that anger the dragon, and even then there's a die roll involved. If you roll a 3 or higher, the dragon rolls up. So you're kind of tempting fate a little bit. You don't know if the dragon's actually going to progress.
Those spots that you can tempt the dragon are mostly down here on the bottom left. For instance, I can collect some beer or I can collect some coins, but each time you do so, it's going to move that dragon one space to the right. You also have some spots here will allow you to look at what's on the back side of these tiles. When you look at the dragon tiles themselves, they tell you an attack value up in the upper left-hand corner. This is a range, so if you play games like Kingsburg, you know it's either going to be a 3, 4, 5, or up to a 6. It also tells you the reward for winning this tile, and these get progressively more challenging or higher numbers as you go through the course of the game. The next thing you can do is right here. This is the tunnel. This action is going to allow you to be able to buy one of the 4 face-up tunnel or mine tiles within the game. These mine tiles do a variety of different things. The basic mine tiles are places where gems are going to be located where you can mine. So when you add a gem or you add a mine tile, it's simply going to be added in a way that makes sense upon the game board, and you're going to add those particular colors to it. Now, anytime you buy any of these, you have to pay the cost along the bottom, and these scale up. The closer they are to the mine stack or the mine tiles, the more expensive they are.
Yeah, that's right. And kind of the whole purpose of this is to either create chains of the same color or create a situation where you have multiple colors of gems on the board, because you're going to want to sell them at the gem market.
Right.
And as you can see here in the gem market, they have special sections for every colored gem. So the more you collect, the more treasure you can earn throughout the game.
There's also tiles that give you special benefits. So anytime, like say for instance, I've collected this one, this is the supply wagon. That means that anytime, or the fast wagons, anytime I go to the supply wagon area, I get to do something a little bit more special from just simply having that within my mind.
There are a lot of those in there, but they also are dead ends, so they block off a path of your mind, and they can't be excavated. So you can never add gems to those special tiles.
Anytime you buy one of these, you're simply going to shuffle these to the right and refill it with a new mine tile. Now, you're going to notice a couple of these locations. These are your worker placement spots, and these are the all-in locations. Whenever you go to one of these locations and you see this symbol, and there's 4 of these different ones up on the board itself, that means the player that takes that action gets a little bit of a bonus right here. In this case, they're going to collect 2 beer barrels. But it also means that everyone else at the table in turn order will be able to follow that action and be able to buy something from the mine, even though they don't have a worker in that spot.
Yeah, and that's kind of that question again of when do you place there, trying to block other people out. Do you want to go there with your little workers? Because if you do, the bigger ones can come and maybe knock you out of your spot. So there's a lot of decisions you have to make when it comes to choosing the timing of those all-in tiles.
Yeah, and it's great when you go to those locations and no one can benefit from them. For instance, if they're out of gold or they're out of beer barrels, you know that you've taken advantage of that by getting a bonus, and then no one else can take advantage. So you really want to time that accordingly.
One of the all-in spots is achievement cards, which is like King's Favor. And if you go there and if you fulfill these objectives, you can claim those tiles.
Yeah.
So you kind of want to look around the board, and you want to go there when no one else can claim, because you're taking away their ability to score victory points that round.
Yeah, let's talk about over here. This is the Dwarf King. You can visit the Dwarf King as one of your worker placement actions. When you go here, you're allowed to fulfill any of the 5 achievement cards that you see there. These are also tiered, so you have starting cards, level 1, and then level 2 cards. They get progressively harder, but they give you more victory points whenever you do achieve them. And again, that's another one of those all-in spots. Anytime you go there, whoever goes there automatically gets 2 victory points.
Yeah.
But again, it's something that everyone can follow you, so you want to take advantage of it. You want to time your workers appropriately. You have spots that allow you to just turn straight in coins into victory points, which is fantastic. It also allows you to re-roll your die if the dragon does attack you that round, which can be huge. Another one of the spots is the gem market. Now, the gem market allows you to trade in the gems that you have in your personal supply back to the bank in order to gain coins. And these get progressively better. There's some starting tiles out here as well. But the trick in this game is that you don't actually have the gems in your mine available to you until you actually go to the mine itself.
Right. You start with a seeded amount of gems, but you have to mine them.
Yeah.
So yeah, you have to go to the mine, in which case you choose one of the 4 colors and you take 1 gem of that color off of every tile you have in front of you.
Yeah.
So it does benefit you to have more tiles of a certain color.
But you want to diversify as well.
You do, because you don't know when the high costing cards are going to come out. They might come out in any one of these 4 categories.
Not only that, but the achievements come out randomly as well. So you want to make sure you're not heavy in, say, for instance, blue, when you have 3 other colors that are available for other players to fulfill. So you're going to eventually run out of gems within your mine by mining so much into them. You want to refill these gems, and this is where dirt comes into play and where the excavate action comes in as well. This action spot's going to allow you to pay either beer or coins to be able to reseed that mine. But the trick here is every time you do so, you're adding dirt to those locations. Once it has 3 dirt in it, you can no longer excavate from that particular tile itself.
That's right.
All right, so what else do we have here? We have a place where you can trade. This is just a spot where you can trade up to 2 times. This allows you to convert one resource for another type of resource so you can be ready for a different action. So finally, you can go to the forge. This is probably the most simple to understand. You're trading in gems of any color or beer to be able to grab from this bag some axe tiles. As we said, you're going to need the axes in order to battle the dragon. On these axe tiles, you have 1 values and 2 values, which are going to be added to your die roll to be able to combat the dragon whenever he does attack. So what happens if the dragon does attack? We've already kind of talked about what happens if you win. If you have the most strength, you're going to be able to gain that tile in front of you. That's broken simply by the turn order itself. But if you don't win, what happens? Yeah,
if you don't win, it can be a little punishing. Every one of these tiles has an indicator of either gems or money or beer barrels. If you lose half of that resource.
Yeah.
Plus, the dragon comes and steals your highest level worker and puts him into prison. Now, it's not for the rest of the game, but it is for the rest of that round.
Right.
And what that also does, if this meeple was out on the board somewhere and you had been blocking your opponents, well, that meeple's in prison now. Other people can go take that action slot.
Right. So the game is all about victory points. You're trying to convert all these resources into victory points. That's typically done through the achievements. You're going to gather a lot of different gems through the course of the game. Go to the Dwarven King to be able to create victory points through the course of the game. The number of rounds you're going to play, a round won't end until all the dwarves from a particular location or from the inn himself are going to be placed up on the board. And then you're going to do a reset where a lot of the tiles are going to shift, and any of the tiles that are left here are going to shift over. You're going to add coins to some of these locations. You're going to filter out old cards and add new cards. However, it's going to be played in X number of rounds depending upon the number of players itself.
Yeah, in a 4-player game, that would be 5 rounds. And again, you finish the round, and then at the end of the round, there's a handy in-game scoring tile that tells you what you're going to score for all your different categories.
Yeah, let's talk about that briefly. What are the scoring options for the players?
Yeah, so this is where you want to have a lot of different mine tiles on your board.
Right.
Because you're going to get points for having sets of those mine tiles. So if you can get up to 9 tiles of a certain color, that's 25 points at the end of the game.
So there's the reason to not diversify it sometimes. Yeah.
Sure, but if you get 5 to 6, it's 10. So if you can get maybe 3 or 4, all 4 colors, 10 of each, it'd be a pretty sprawling mine, but you can score a lot of points at the end of the game from having a diverse number of tiles. So you have to decide which way you want to go.
You're also going to get points for any leftover coins you have, any leftover gems you have, and also some points for gems that you haven't mined specifically from your area as well.
Yeah, just in case you couldn't get to them all, you get, I think, 2 points for every gem that's left.
Opportunity and timing. Like, you really want to make sure that you have the right workers available at the right times. You're picking your actions smartly. You're using those all-in actions as often as possible because they do give you a bonus, but also they're going to allow other players to follow you at the table. So it's taking those actions at the right opportunistic time.
Yeah, somebody is going to take those all-in spots.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
You want it to be you because you want that benefit.
Yeah.
I think actually in most games, all these action spots are going to be taken every round because when you're the last guy and you have to place your one, you're kind of stuck with whatever's left. So you don't want to be the guy stuck in that situation.
And that's the interesting point too, is that you're using your higher workers and you're typically bumping other players off the table, which naturally means they're going to take their action next. And it starts to limit your availability on what you can do round after round.
Yeah.
So that is Treasure Mountain from August Games. It is a 2 to 4 player worker placement game. It takes about 2 hours to play. If you guys have any questions about the game, make them in the comments below. Subscribe to us, follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook and everything else that we do, and we will catch you guys next time.